Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is going to be all of my thoughts on Shadow and Bone Season 2. The show has been out for a week and I've watched it twice. I watched it once during the first 24 hours and I didn't really feel like I had my thoughts in order to film this then, because I was originally going to react to the episodes, but I literally couldn't figure out how to do it easily. Everything I tried kept on, either one thing wasn't working or I couldn't sync things up. So I during my test run, so I was like, you know what, I'll just do this kind of video. So here we are. But upon a rewatch, so my second watch through, I wrote down some notes and some kind of points that I want to talk about and discuss of just my thoughts on it. So, but let's just jump straight in. We'll go episode by episode and then overall thoughts. So, episode 1, I'm just gonna read my notes and then we'll kind of talk about them. So, love Alina and Mal, Kaz's backstory. We will be definitely circling around back to that. The Crow storyline is interesting, how the episode ends off with blowing up the Crow Club, because that what the fuck moment that made me so confused on what the Crow's plot was going to be. Wylan and Jesper, and then I just put a little heart, and then in brackets, Wylan remembers Jesper. And then I just have the Darkling saving the Grisha. A heart just next to Nikolai. And then the Crow's arrested, in brackets. Interesting. So I guess I more will be talking about the Crows because I feel like I give a shit about them more. No shade to the Shadow and Bone characters, but when in doubt, I am here for the Crows and the Crows only. And just the Shadow and Bone characters are a nice addition. They're a nice addition to their own fucking show. But in general, the first episode, I remember watching it for the first time and just being I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. Especially because of, the Crows getting arrested. But when I say the Crows, I mean Kaz, Jesper, and Inej. And you're kind of wait, what's going on? What? And then obviously, them kind of, recruiting Wylan to help them. I was oh, yay, this is happening. And then blowing up the Crow Club, I was this is not how it goes in the books. Obviously, the Crow storyline to the in the show to the book is so wildly different, and I knew that obviously, but I was okay, but no, this is not how it happens. I was so confused. I kid you not, I started crying as soon as Kaz's backstory was the first glimpse of it. I was it's just shit. That was just the only reaction, just shit. That was literally my feeling. I love Nikolai in this episode. At first, I remember when he, the casting was first announced, I was I'm iffy on this. Literally within the first of all, in the trailer, I was okay, yeah, this is good. But then within the first, I don't know, 30 seconds of him being introduced, I was I'm here. I love him. I love Nikolai in the books, so I'm happy that I love him in the show. I don't have any thoughts on the Darkling. And then, as I said, I love Alina and Mal. I'm just a sucker for friends to lovers. So, yeah. I don't think I have anything else to talk about for episode 1. I feel that was mostly setting up and kind of, starting plots of, obviously, Mal and Alina ended up with Nikolai on the... I forgot the name of the ship. I just watched episode 8 and it was mentioned in it. Because I literally just finished my rewatch half an hour before filming this. So that was definitely okay, we're kicking off right at the beginning of Siege and Storm with Crow's things kind of in the background. And then episode 2, I only have 4 notes. So, by this episode, I loved Nikolai. The Sea Whip was visually cool. Enjoyed the P.E.K.K.A. stuff, but also, what? And Jesper remembering Wylan has me dead. So we're gonna kind of go through each of those plot points that I apparently felt were important. I don't remember half the things that I wrote down over the last like week. So yeah, by this episode, I loved Nikolai. We've already kind of talked about that. The Sea Whip was visually cool because, I don't know, like, when reading the books, like, I've read Shadow and Bone, like the trilogy twice, and then I've read Six of Crows, like, the duology 3 times. So, like, in the 2 times that I read Siege and Storm where the Sea Whip is, I had, like, no visual of what it was. I kind of was just like, it's a big, giant worm. So this was really cool. And just that entire scene was just, it was really cool. Enjoy the P.E.K.K.A stuff, but also what? I was not expecting us to have as much P.E.K.K.A stuff because obviously he is a very prominent villain in Six of Crows that I was like, kind of like, I get why we're dealing with it, but also this is not how shit goes. So now I'm just kind of like, so we already have him dealt with by the end of the season. Actually, like halfway through the season, really. So I'm kind of like oh, that's gonna leave so many gaps in the Six of Crows storyline, because I know that the showrunner is trying to get a spin-off series, like a spin-off show of just Six of Crows. I honestly feel like they should just continue on with the Shadow and Bone name so that they don't have to go through as much of a hassle, but that's just my opinion. And then Jesper remembering Wylan has me dead. Yeah, because this is the way it happened. I just was like you got the vibe of like, oh yeah, Wylan remembers, Jesper doesn't, so you're kind of like, oh, what happened? And then as soon as Jesper remembers, it's like, we have met before, you bought me Stroop waffles. It's like, you literally remember now when we are getting attacked and you are trying to save me? Like, excuse me? Like, that's what I imagine was going through Wylan's head at that moment. Like, mood. Now, moving on to episode 3. So, Hummingbird equals iconic. Kaz and Inej moment. Kaz Kane fight. That's all the notes I have written down. Again, Hummingbird is visually better than what I thought. Like, when I first saw it in the trailer, I literally was like, that's like exactly how I imagined it in the books, but like 100 times better. So I'm really pleased with that. The Kaz and Inej moment when they're like, Inej, because in the previous episode she had got like cut, stabbed. Can't remember if it was cut, stabbed, or both. But Kaz was helping her clean that, and that moment between them, literally I was like on the edge. I say on the edge of the seat. I was literally almost like, just kind of like I was almost gonna go face first at the laptop. I was like, what's going on? What are we doing? I love that moment. And the Kaz Cade fight, chef's kiss. It was amazing. I loved it. I think also in this same episode we had like Jesper, we first saw him like truly use his jurist ability for fixing like a piano wire, and in that moment you're kind of like, oh, so he's actually going to start using his powers maybe, because in episode 1 Kaz like confronts Jesper and is like, not confronts him, but like Jesper's like, you knew, and Kaz is kind of like, of course I knew, like, and then like lists off reasons of like, here's how I knew, like, you are literally a perfect sharpshooter of fixing Kaz's cane in episode either 6 or 6 maybe, I think, of season 1, without any tools. So like Jesper being Grisha was definitely starting to pick up there. Episode 3, I don't really think I have any other thoughts, except I can't remember if that's when we went to the spinning wheel at the end or if it was the beginning of episode 4. But I was like, what are we doing here? Like, because we pretty much, with the Shadow and Bone characters, go from the ship to the spinning wheel, and my brain went, no, we're supposed to go to the palace and do shit, and then we're supposed to end up there. They pretty much cut most of Siege and Storm's plotline besides the very beginning, and then they kind of just jumped to Rune and Rising, which I honestly prefer, because I don't remember jack shit from Siege and Storm. Like, yes, it's been 2 years since I read the book. It's been 2 years since I read the book, fuck. Oops. But I was like, I didn't really like it. I remember not liking it, so I do kind of like how that was condensed a little. Episode 4, I wrote, shocked Alina agreed to the engagement, because obviously in the book she's kind of like a fuck no. And then there's me that I'd be like, I do, like, yes, because I love Nikolai, but that's not what we're here. I screeched when Nikolai mentioned the crows. I literally was like, okay, this is how we're doing it. Okay, damn near died when Nina took Kaz to Pekka, then super relieved when revealed it was the plan. So that of how it's like, my brain is forgetting words and forgetting plots. So we are just going like, these are like my raw and honest thoughts, honestly. But like in that moment when it was like, okay, yeah, you do this, and then like freaking like the Nina taking Kaz to Pekka, I was like, oh my god, she ratted him out, what the fuck? And I was like, oh my god, this is so out of character. And then I'm like, oh, it's part of the plan. And then when Kaz getting beat up by Pekka and his men, I was like, no, I'm like, he's been hurt enough. And then I put backstory even worse. Throughout the first, it's pretty much like the first 4 or 5 episodes, that's when you get the bulk of Kaz's backstory. And it just like, obviously, as someone who's read the books, I obviously know his backstories, but I was crying every single time it was mentioned, because I'm like, this poor child. He was a child when this happened. It broke him. And I'm gonna start fucking crying now thinking of it. Holy shit. And then I said, Kaz is low-key evil and I love him. That's in reference to him telling Pekka that he buried Elby, which is Pekka's son, 6 feet underground. And I was like, damn. And then I just have a note of flirting from Nikolai, because he was like low-key flirting with Alina, and I'm just like, I would be dead if that happened to me. Like, hello. This has just turned into me simping for Nikolai, and honestly, I'm okay with that. But yeah, that episode was one that definitely, it like wrapped up the Crows like part 1 to their storyline, I feel like. Moving on to episode 5, that's when we kind of really start to get into stuff. So really said we start Crows with pain and sadness. Like, we just start off seeing the Crows and it's just kind of, it's just like oh, we're going there. At first, Sword Plot had me going, what the fuck is this? So basically they are recruited essentially by Nikolai to find this sword, which is supposed to be able to, like, it's belongs to a saint who used it to slay shadow things, basically, and they are trying to then get it for Nikolai and Alina so that the I literally always forget the fucking word, and I should have wrote it down, but for the Darkling shadow things that he gets in like episode 1, I would like, because they cannot be killed any other way, so they're like, hey, this sword might work. And obviously the Crows are sent to go and get it. Genya having her thoughts to the Queen, and David and Genya. Those kind of happen similar, but of like Genya's thing to the Queen of how like she's like, this is how I killed your husband. I was like, fuck yeah. Like, of just like Genya found a way to save herself. And then David and Genya, I love them so much. Like in the book, I'm honestly like in the books, I'm literally like, I love them to bits and pieces, and in the show it translated to like me being like, I love you even more. When Jesper is basically asked like, did you do something stupid, in reference to he kind of messed up a little something with Wylan, of how like Wylan is illiterate, so when they're looking at something and Wylan's like, I don't know what is on it, that's kind of a thing happened. And just Jesper going, I didn't do anything stupid, I said something stupid. And I'm like, yep, that just describes your entire vibe. Nina calling Kaz waffles. They fake being husband and wife to talk to somebody about the sword, and it's fucking hilarious how Nina calls Kaz waffles, and I literally proceeded to call him waffles for the rest of the episode when I first watched it. I was like, Just like how I had the habit of, throughout the first watch through, of calling the Darkling anytime I was like, oh, we're with the Darkling, I was like, oh, we're with Darkle Sparkles, blame Twitter. Same with Cazzle Dazzle, which blamed the cast interview where that happened like 3 or 4 weeks ago, where it was like somebody said it, like it was answering a thing, and then like everybody just called Kaz Cazzle Dazzle for the rest of the like interview, and I'm like, that's in my vocabulary now. Kaz's reaction to taking off his gloves, Nina touching him, and Inej giving him his gloves. So there's like a Shuhan thing that is like a cultural thing of when you're having tea, and obviously Nina and Kaz are with this person and they're having tea talking about this sword, and it involves taking the tea or whatever, putting it on your finger and then like on your forehead. And obviously Kaz does do it to respect, but you see him slowly peeling off his gloves. You also saw him in a previous episode trying to wash his hands, and it was literally like torture to him, or at least that's how it visually seemed. And so seeing him do that, you're first like, oh my gosh, and then something happens, and then Nina ends up touching his hand, and he freaks the fuck out. It basically runs out of the place, leaving gloves behind, and Inej ends up giving it to him. And it's just like I love that moment because it shows just how much trauma Kaz has with touch. And with the gloves are his safety. They're not just aesthetics, they are his safety. So without them, he feels lost, broken, scared, and just, my heart hurts. I don't think I have anything else about that episode, really. Yeah. Episode 6. I just have a random note. I don't know what this is in reference to, but it's Nikolai can get it. I think he did something, maybe like a speech or something, and I was like, that's good or something. I don't remember what that note was for. Dreams are cool, but scary other times. So basically the dreams are in reference to Tolia, Inej, Jesper, and Kaz going into, like, they're going to steal the sword, and then going into like a room, but the door is closed, and then there's this like thing that ends up basically knocking them out, and they start dreaming. And so the dreams range from Jesper's being so sweet and so amazing, he's able to see his mother, and I think that's ultimately kind of for his character what made him start using his abilities more, because of his mother kind of being like, you don't use it, but it's your subconscious, not an actual person. It's like your subconscious telling you that. Ranges to then Kaz's being like him drowning, or Inej's where that really shocked me, where basically her and Kaz almost kiss, and that's how you really can imagine the turmoil that's going inside of her, of like, I'm in love with this person, but I'll never be loved back. And this will never happen. So next is Alina, Mal, and Baghra going to Moritzova's like place, basically, where it's revealed that Mal is the third amplifier, the Firebird, which, shocker to nobody who's read the books, you know. But that entire thing was done well, and I just hit myself in the face. That entire thing was done well, and I really enjoyed it. Baghra sacrificing herself did kind of have me a little like, oh, a little kind of like I knew it was pretty much gonna happen, but I was still like, ooh, that kind of hurt a little bit. And then the fight with Sanctum, I literally just wrote down fight with the Saint. It's like Sanctum Nair? It starts with an N, I think. But they're like, she's obviously the saint that they're stealing the sword from, and so it's like there's a fight, and that fight was well done, and it visually looked really pretty. A fight looking pretty. I swear I'm fine mentally. I don't really have anything else to say about that episode. Episode 7, Nikolai and Alina moment was nice at the beginning. I think it's at the beginning they have like a conversation, and I really enjoyed that because it's where Alina kind of, like, in some ways breaks down to Nikolai and is like, Mal's the third amplifier, and I'm scared of it, like, with everything, and I liked it. Inej saving Alina. Inej comes in with that sword that they got and just kind of heats a Nichevoya. That's what the shadow thing is. I love how I randomly remember it there, like a Nichevoya, something like that. But comes in and slays one of those after it grabs Alina. Ooh, I loved that. All fights were amazing because it's like, obviously at this point there's the Darklings Grisha kind of fighting against our crew, which is kind of like the first army and just like other Grisha that are on like the good side, especially Twilia's. I always struggle to say that name, literally. His fight of how he basically took on 4 Grishas alone, and I was like, damn. Dominic dying was sad. Dominic is Nikolai's childhood, like, best friend type thing. And you meet him earlier in the season, but him dying, Nikolai's reaction was definitely more of like a, this shows the realistic side of battle, of war. And I think that's kind of like, you can almost see a thing in Nikolai's, like, face of like a, losing somebody that I actually cared about versus just the soldiers or Grisha. You're kind of like a, but I didn't have that connection to them. David sacrificing himself for Genya. Oh my god, that literally broke my fucking heart. Because he's not supposed to die yet. He does die in Rule of Wolves. But, oh, that hurt. That hurt. Wyland's bombs and Jesper's guns is the next note. So basically there's this big battle happening and Wyland ends up throwing a bomb, which kind of helps the situation. And you're just kind of like, I remember seeing the bomb and going, what the fuck is that? And then 2 seconds later going, oh, like, it was like a, oh, I forgot that we literally have a demolitions expert that just arrived. And then Jesper's guns, you finally, like, and it's more or less just Jesper as, like, himself, because he finally uses his jurist ability in battle. Like, he ends up cutting the fingertips of one of the evil Grishas. And then we see Alina do the light version of the cut. Obviously the Darkling has the cut, which is just, it's dark, it's all that. But we see Alina do a light version, which is literally just light. And I love that. I honestly, my favorite episode probably is it's probably episode 7, because that entire thing was really well done in my opinion. And just, I love that episode. And then episode 8, which I actually have the most things. I have almost a page-ish. I have like a full page worth. So, Kaz giving Nikolai his cane. So Nikolai got hurt, so Kaz ends up giving Nikolai his cane, and Nikolai asks, well, don't you need it? And Kaz goes, I've got more experience with pain. That fucking almost broke me. It's just like a, well, shit kind of moment. And then they end up in the building, and Nichevoya ends up kind of like entering the room where they're at. This is after kind of like, they've gotten inside, and then Nichevoya comes in. Originally they were running from Volcra, but they ended up in a room, and Nichevoya ended up getting into the room, and Wyland throws a bomb, and then Jesper has a reaction of, that's my man, and then turns to Wyland and just goes, we actually haven't we haven't discussed labels yet. And then it's just kind of like, in that moment you'd fucking have that conversation, like, oh my gosh. Inej and Zoya fighting the, I think it was both the Volcra and the Nichevoya, or was it just the Nichevoya? I can't remember. I think it was actually just the Nichevoya after the fold kind of started to go away. And that was amazing, because that's a kind of like a pair that you're like, huh? But it works so well. David being dead and Genya finding the ring design. Obviously, David died, and Jen ended up finding a ring design of a ring that David was gonna give her with with a ruby. Like, she finds a case with a ruby, and they earlier had a conversation in the show of like, what's your favorite, I can't remember exactly, but like, what's your favorite thing? And she was like, originally she mentions emeralds, but that's the Lansov like thing, so she couldn't have it, so she's like, ruby. Surprise, Mal and Alina didn't end up together. Oh my gosh, that's something that is just like would not have put that on my bingo board. Obviously, in the books they end up like running off together pretty much, and so it's like, what? But I prefer that, honestly. I have always been team Alina doing her own thing, and she kind of is doing that, but kind of not. I guess we'll have to see if it gets a future season where that goes. And then I just have Kaz and Inej scene, stay with me, I want you. So they're kind of talking about what they're going to do after that, and Kaz basically says, stay with me in Ketterdam, I want you. And then Inej is like, with your gloves on, fully clothed, always turning your head so I can never kiss you or you can never kiss me, something like that. And I fucking broke my heart with that, because it's like, yeah, that's the only way that Kaz will ever love somebody. He will never do what she wants, and not do what she wants as in a he has to, but a that's what she wants, and if he's not willing to give it to her, he has to be willing to let her go, which is very sad. Mal being Sturmond, like, he takes up Nikolai's like role as Sturmond on the ship, because obviously Nikolai's off being king, everybody in his family's dead, so he's now being king, which yes, King Nikolai, I'll be your queen. But like, that was interesting. I remember being like, I'm sorry, fucking what now? Like, okay. And then Inej joining that so that they can hunt slaver ships in order for her to possibly track down her family, which, or at least get revenge on the people who caused her to go into slavery, because she was obviously, as a kid, like, taken, and that's how she ended up in Ketterdam. So it was like oh, that makes sense, but also what? Nikolai ends up being like, I can't remember exactly how it is in the book, so don't quote me on this, but basically in King of Scars, he ends up basically being able to turn into a Nishivoya, or like it takes control, and you see that because on, like, I think it's like his back into his front on one of the sides, there's like, he got hit by a Nishivoya, like grabbed, and so there's kind of the remnants of that, which I really hope in a season 3 we get to see that more of, like, him actually being, I guess, in some ways possessed by a Nishivoya. That's gonna be interesting, because I personally like that plot to an extent. And then Alina's with Nikolai going to be essentially possibly queen if they actually end up getting married. Again, book Alina could never. And at the like ceremony where Nikolai is getting crowned as king, there is a, I guess you'd call it almost an assassination attempt, where a Grisha takes Jirda Parem and basically causes everybody to, I'm guessing, like, blood coming out of their mouth as like a internal bleeding type thing, which then, like, it's like, oh, we're going that plot, which then leads to the ice heist. Kaz hints at the ice heist, which, chef's kiss. I love the ice heist. I really want to reread Six of Crows right now. So yeah, obviously there's so many differences. I've been literally recording for like over half an hour at this point, I think. So I'm not really going into too many of the differences, but like the main ones that I am like, oh my god, pointing out. Obviously I've pointed out the difference of cutting a bunch of Siege and Storm, and obviously they did Siege and Storm, Ruin and Rising, and then I guess some of, honestly, isn't the P.E.K.K.A stuff beginning of Crooked Kingdom? I think so. So like they put so much of that in to the show. Some differences are obviously Mal and Alina don't end up together. David dying. Even something as simple as Wylan and Jesper knew each other before. Like they knew each other not knowing of each other, if that makes any sense. Like in the books it's kind of like, okay, I've acquired 2 cats because they ended up in my room, so if you hear noise it's them. But I was saying of how like in the about Wylan and Jesper, of how they know each other instead of knowing of each other. In Six of Crows, it's like Kaz had used Wylan as a demolition man once, and so Jesper knew of him, versus in the show they knew each other as in had like a one-night stand. And so it's kind of like they're just picking up on that instead of having to build their relationship, which that's one thing that at first I was like, oh no, I want to see the like all of the pining and all of the like them kind of like crushing on each other, but we just went straight in like deep end, and I was like, okay. There's a lot of different things. Obviously like the app rat thing was basically cut out of the plot, and yeah, I would need to reread the books to do a full-on comparison, which I might do at some point. I do really want to reread at least Six of Crows, Crooked Kingdom, Rule of Wolves, and King of Scars and Rule of Wolves. That's the order they go. But that might be a later 2023 or 2024 me thing, because I have so many things that I want to read. But yeah, this is just a bleh of all of my thoughts and things like that. I honestly don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm going to leave this here. Let me know your thoughts on the show below. I really hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I think I've already said that. I am exhausted. But don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!